point, I think it was, let's call it $1,100 for a basement suite when they rented it out a few years ago. Now at this point, they've put an ad up. I think it's $1,300.
Okay.
I would say guess how many applicants, but if I say that, you're going to probably guess too high, so it won't be as fun. But
15?
They had 15 showings the first day.
Okay.
They had 100 people request to see the unit.
Holy crap.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds. Record.
Welcome back to the Tom Storey Show. I'm Tom.
That's
Who are
Tom.
you?
The Tom Storey Show with Steve and Tom.
Yeah, we got to do our radio voices.
What's going on, man?
Well, I realized something that we didn't do last show, which we probably should get out of the way now.
We screwed up so bad.
as two people who literally put out multiple YouTube videos a week, we launched our last show and we didn't ask people a specific question. Do you remember what the question should have been?
No, but I know we didn't ask them to, if there's a particular question, we definitely should have asked them to subscribe and rate us on the new podcast app things that I'm not super familiar with, and like button. There was like almost no likes, way more views. My thought was 6 views on YouTube and I was going to be happy, and it's into the hundreds, so I'm stoked about that.
Honestly, for a brand new podcast, brand new channel, I was thrilled with the reception of number one, because a lot of people don't just watch on YouTube. They listen in their phones, in their cars. And so to have that many people come to that platform as well, and the visuals, and stare at us for 45 minutes, I think that's a win.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I get to see the analytics on the backside of the audio, and I couldn't believe the audio actually took almost as well as the YouTube version. So I'm happy with that.
Amazing. So I guess we'll ask you very nicely now, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the new channel. Let's get to 100 by the time this video is out. That would be awesome for subscribers. And if you listen on the podcast apps, whichever one you listen on, if you could rate this podcast, if you like it, that would be great.
And don't rate it if you don't like it.
Yes,
don't give us a 1 star.
Do nothing if you don't like it. Just move on.
Yeah, man. It was the reception I got was pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to this. We're gonna hopefully be within the coming days here getting guests on.
I've got some feelers out there with some pretty exciting names.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do they know I'm on the show? Because they might not.
No, I leave that till they show up and they're like, "Oh, Steve's here."
They're like that guy with all the jerk troll videos on YouTube. That guy? No way.
I did the Canadian real estate show again yesterday, and I was talking about how we launched the podcast and how they should have you on. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I think at some point you're going to do their show as well.
I may already know about this, but we'll see. It depends.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah. So we left it on a cliffhanger last week.
Yeah, well,
interest rates are going crazy, and they're going to go crazier. And how are we going to deal with this? I did a evaluation on a property, Tom, yesterday. I currently have the property listed. Every couple of weeks we reevaluate. Yep. The micro market, let's say the micro market evaluation for this particular property is now sitting at 47 months of supply.
Holy moly. This must have been luxury real estate for that much.
I will not comment on exactly which one it is.
Sure.
But it's crazy because the values the amount of inventory when we brought it on the market versus
where it's at now.
Where it is now, only, a few weeks later.
So
is crazy. Now, the thing that I think will happen, obviously this is all happening due to people being scared as a result of interest rate hikes, not knowing where things are going. So everybody gets their foot off the gas, and we're going to see probably a really slow summer, I would assume. So I think I have a prediction that if this gets bad enough, interest rates keep going up and up and up, that OSFI will step in and save the day.
So I want to dig into that and actually tell you a funny story. So the stress test became a thing on January 1st, 2018. And that was actually the first day I ever did live news. And CP24 in my market, which is like the all-day news station, they messaged me New Year's Day at like 11 a.m. They're like, can you come do the show at like noon or like 2 p.m.? And thank goodness I didn't have a really big New Year's Eve. Like I took it pretty easy. And I remember being like, oh crap, okay, I've done newspapers, I've done interviews, but I've never been on live TV. So the first thing I ever talked about on live TV was the stress test, and thinking like, oh my God, this stress test is going to cool down the market. People can't buy what they used to buy. This isn't fair for first-time home buyers. Well, I guess we're going to find out pretty quickly. First of all, has the stress test worked with these rate increases? And now you have a theory that changes are coming to the stress test. So
what's the, first of all, what does worked mean for the stress test? What do you define as the goal of the stress test, and what do you define as being a successful stress test?
I mean, I think the goal is pretty straightforward. It was to make sure that the average Canadian wasn't spending more or above their means if rates were to go up, that they could still afford their principal residence and their property with all the other things going on in their life, right? So that's why it was 2 basis points higher, or that 5.25. Did it work? It's still too early to know if it worked, right? Because the rates have really only started going up the last few months. And I'd say I could argue it worked if we don't see a lot of foreclosures on the market or people liquidating properties really needing to get out. And I haven't seen that yet. But again, I think it's too early to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, so I think when I think about the stress test, everybody thinks, it was brought in to maybe control house prices or something. It wasn't. It was brought in because the banking regulator was like, hey guys, this is really low and this is not good and this is not normal. So to protect you from yourselves, we're going to make sure that any house you buy from now on, you will also be able to afford that house in the future.
Yep.
So that is, and we have to disconnect those things, because so many things being brought in right now into our industry and into the lives of our clients are in the name of consumer, in the name of bringing house prices down or making housing more affordable. And most of them being done are not actually going to do that whatsoever.
No, they're mostly taxes. They're mostly taxes are what they are.
They are mostly taxes, which helps the government spend more money.
Right.
But it has helped nothing with prices. But really, with OSFI bringing that in, they're saying, okay, guys, we can tell, we're bankers. We can tell that interest rates won't be this low forever. So we're going to protect you against yourself so you can afford more later on. Then when rates went even lower, OSFI stepped in and went, oh no, this stress test is going higher because this is also still bad. Like this is getting worse. So that's when they went, what did they bring it in at? When they first brought it in, was it 5 or was it 4.75?
It was supposed, I think always it was 2 basis points higher than the rate you actually got, or another number, and maybe that other number had changed.
So that's what they did last year. They changed that other number from 4.75
maybe to
4.79 to 5.25. So they increased it. But that 2 stayed the same, right? That 2% over and above. So when they brought it in, they said, listen, realistically, historically, rates are at 4.5% for a mortgage. They should be.
Sure.
So let's get it to a spot where everybody can pay 4.5% or more. So that's cool. They even padded that number a bit because house prices were going up. And now what I'm thinking is going to happen is, now that everybody's getting a 4.5% mortgage, currently anyway,
right,
to qualify at 6.5%, and then likely by the end of the year, maybe qualify at 7% or 7.5%. I think they're going to keep that 5.25%, but they're going to mess with that 2 number.
You think that 2 becomes 1?
I think that 2 becomes 1. I don't think they're going to eliminate it because it has been successful. And personally, I think it's been the best move. Like, being as financially conservative as I am and as like a saver and as tight as I am with my money, it's like forcing people to be like, okay, don't spend too much on this, even though they're now spending that money on other stuff. They're not saving it. But I just think the bank is going to go, okay, they're probably not going to go that much higher than from this point, whenever that is in December, when they re-look at it. And they're going to go, okay, now that we have realistic interest rates, now we can dial that back because we don't have to protect you from realistic interest rates anymore.
I heard that although they were supposed to review the stress test at the end of every year, they may actually review it earlier.
Where'd you hear that BS? Come on. You've been reading the comments?
I heard some things, some places, okay? I'm just saying.
Really?
There's
Do you
a
have
possibility.
insider knowledge?
No, but so let me ask you this, because I actually don't know the answer to this. When they changed it, when prices were raising at such a rapid pace, was it mid-year or was it at the end of year meeting that they say they're supposed to do? I don't know.
I believe, let me, my memory's poor that far back, but I believe they review it. They're scheduled to review it every December for the next year. So last time when the market was increasing too much, they actually said, okay, this is obvious. We need to increase the stress test. So now I think that we can uncouple the increase of the interest rates from housing and in order to keep the housing market, strong, because let's face it, our economy is addicted to housing.
Yep, very much.
So as a result, they'll probably go, okay, we can start turning this back down because interest rates are more realistic. And are we going to do that in the new year? Now, I would be scared if they did it now because we don't know where interest rates are going to be. So we're going to probably have to get to a spot where we go through one of these announcements from the Bank of Canada without an interest rate increase before they actually tweak things.
Interesting. I mean, I think once we've cooled down on interest rate and we know when the hikes are going to stop for a little bit and the Bank of Canada has given us that indication, I think it's got to happen, right? Just because really the stress test, although it affects everybody, like every change to the market, whether it's a tax, whether it's trying to cool down the demand, it hurts the people the most that don't currently own real estate, right? Because if you've owned for 5 years and you're moving up, yes, the stress test would impact you, but you've got equity and appreciation. Someone sitting on the sidelines, like right now, you're sitting on the sidelines and you want fixed, and you're taking a 4.5% fix and qualifying at 6.5%. That's tough.
I was doing payments for a client that just bought, and from carrying costs from rental to their first time buyer,
right,
it was basically double. Right, so they're taking on double in order to finally become a homeowner and start paying stuff down. But they also had rent from previous years. So here's what I'm seeing. I have somebody can I call it a firsthand story if it's not me? It's a firsthand story that I know someone who's going through it, so I guess it's a secondhand story.
I think it's a secondhand story.
Okay, cool. And they're renting out their basement apartment right now, you guys would call it. We call them basement suites here. And it's like in Surrey, where I am, more than 50% of the houses have
that
basement apartments, right? Because it's just crazy, the prices. They, at one point, I think it was, let's call it $1,100 for a basement suite when they rented it out a few years ago. Now, at this point, they've put an ad up. I think it's $1,300.
Okay.
I would say guess how many applicants, but if I say that, you're going to probably guess too high, so it won't be as fun. But
15?
They had 15 showings the first day.
Okay.
They had 100 people request to see the unit.
Holy crap.
100 messages within 24 hours at a much higher. So here's the thing. As buyers stop entering the market right now, first-time buyers, or let's call it divorcees, they divorce and they get out of the market, because it's so cumbersome because of interest rates and prices and everything else that's going on, they're entering the rental market.
And what's interesting maybe to the viewer is that in Ontario, real estate agents actually handle rentals, where in your market, they do not.
It's a different license. It's like a kind of a different tier of license. So we could, but we don't. So generally they're on their own. But I just think that, and so since your team does handle some leases and things like that, what are you seeing with rental costs? Because I think now, even though house costs have gone crazy and everybody's like, screw it, I'm just going to rent.
Yep.
that equation is not going to go in the right direction for those renters.
No, rental prices in Toronto, I believe, are the highest now they've ever been. They've passed the previous peak in 2019. We have a rental division on our team. We have 2 agents that probably do minimum 3 leases a week. Like, they're very active in the rental market. We put up a client's 1-bedroom near Lakeshore area, like down by the water in Toronto. It was a cute unit, no parking, 600 square feet. You know, we put it on the market for $21.50, and in the first 24 hours, we had 36 showings booked, and we had 6 offers the next day.
So how does that work then? So if you're doing a residential lease, you have a lease offer basically? Is it like just is it a lease agreement that's like filled in by the tenant and then just submitted?
So it's basically the same process as buying and selling. It's just different paperwork. You're just making an offer to lease instead of an offer to purchase. And you have your realtor help you make that offer. But then like we have that, which is like the real estate confirmation of this is, the terms and things. But we have an Ontario standard lease that supersedes all of this that needs to be signed afterwards or during, which is a very straightforward, here's exactly how it works. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. Here's all the rules. But I have once before I saw action like this in our rental market. And I want to say it was like 2017, summer of 2017. And this all lines up, by the way, where like weather's getting nicer. Rental market always ramps up in the summer, but interest rates are also higher, meaning less people can buy, which means more people are going to be renting. Plus, we are moving to I think it's, I don't want to call it out of pandemic, but like the next phase here, wherever this takes us, people are doing things again, and all those things added together has created this perfect storm where I've never seen rental action like this before. And the 2 agents on my team that do all these rentals, it's only really shifted like this in the last 3 months, which lines up perfectly with rates going up.
So the tenants then, do they have to come in and like do they offer over?
Yeah, we lease that over asking.
Crazy. So they're coming in. So in Toronto, because you guys have more of a system than we do, and ours is like the Wild West, you guys get over asking multiple offer rentals.
Yeah, there's even some people, I don't know how long this will last. Some people are putting up leases with offer dates.
Oh man, that's nuts.
And
that's crazy.
And the tenants, they give their credit score, their job letter, pay stubs. Sometimes they'll have a cosigner. Some people right now my dog doesn't like the cost of rentals apparently. Some people right now are giving like 6 months up front, which they don't have to. They definitely don't have to. They're offering big money up front just to get accepted because it's that competitive.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder if does that fit in the tenants? I'm not going to ask that question.
No, it doesn't, but we're not asking, they're offering.
Really?
It's like no one's asking for it. They're just saying, we'll give you this because we're so desperate to get a place by this certain date.
So you mentioned that was there was a previous time where it may have been similar, but not as crazy in 2017, in the summer of 2017. Because you guys went through a substantial correction in 2017 in Ontario or Toronto. Do you think those are inverse of each other? Do you think it's like, okay, so the market corrects, so like, because that's what I'm seeing, and the market corrects, which it is right now in my market, and it's just like the flood to the rental market is nuts.
It actually lines up perfectly. Like back then, it wasn't just interest rate hikes. It was like we brought in foreign buyer, and then the stress test came in the next year. And I think psychologically more than anything, that's what impacted it then. And that's why we've seen this play out before, like what's going on right now. I've had 2 other versions of this in the last 5-6 years that we can at least kind of see how this is going to play out. But what's interesting is rental prices skyrocketed in Toronto. And even though action wise, it's the same now as it was back then, they weren't as expensive back then. It didn't cost as much. Yeah. I don't know if salaries have gone up that much in 5 years. I don't think so. So either
not for real people that have real jobs.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
They're putting a higher percentage of their salary into the rental, which means now they're saving less to potentially, like, listen, rentals, I've always talked about this with our clients. It's like they are a great thing to do lifestyle wise. You're not held down. You don't have a mortgage. If you can make better returns elsewhere in the stock market, by all means, if that's, but they're a trap. They're a really good trap. And it's two ways. It's a trap is either, okay, well, this is all I can afford, or I'm in this great rental. I'm under rent control. Why would I buy a place? I'm paying $1,000 a month. It's going to cost me $3,000 a month to own. Why would I do that? I'm just going to stay here. And some people are lucky enough to have the option where they still could buy, they choose not to, and some people just can't afford to do it. So either way, it's a tough one. And like, what's your alternative other than buying or renting?
The funny thing you said there, it's like, okay, so I'm in this long-term rental. We have in BC, the rental market used to be inflation plus 2% is what you could increase, right?
Yeah.
Well, this year that would be nuts. So at this point, it's like 1%, right? We have an NDP government. They've just said, nope, we're basically making rent freezes happen. So the first-time buyer that we have that just bought is considering now a good financial position, but he's like, should I maybe just rent out this new place I just bought and until I'm ready to take on that much more space, because I don't really need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should I rent out this place that I just bought because the rents are going to be silly, way more than what I'm paying for my place, and then that will help me offset. Now it's not gonna cash flow positive or anything, but his monthly payments, if he rents it out, will likely be lower than if he moves into it.
Now, if anyone's listening to this in Ontario thinking, I want to be a first-time buyer / landlord, if you do that, you are not entitled to your first-time home buyer credit. You pay full land transfer. And if they find out you rented it out and did not move in within 9 months, they will come back and ask for it plus interest. So just to be very clear on like,
ours are all above, like almost all of our properties right now are above first-time home buyer, right? So
yeah.
Where's your first-time home buyer exemption right now? At what price point does it stop?
Oh, it just gets the maximum they can get back is like 8,475. I don't exactly remember the exact dollar volume. It's probably like 500 and something $1,000. Like, it's not much.
Okay, so ours is like at 500 grand. It starts being implemented, and at like 5.25, it's full tax.
See, but we pay double in Toronto. Our land transfer, whenever I'm telling clients about it, I'm like, please don't shoot the messenger here. Like, I'll give you a crazy number. If you buy a property in the city of Toronto for $1 million and you are not a first-time home buyer, your land transfer tax is $32,950.
32 for $1 million
For $1 million property if you are not a first-time home buyer.
And what is it here? 18 grand, I think.
And I'll tell you why. Because in Toronto, we pay municipal and provincial. Everywhere else in Ontario, you only pay provincial. So if this house was in Ottawa for $1 million, you pay $16,475.
Okay.
If you bought your first property $1 million and were a first-time home buyer, let's say, the maximum credit you get back is 8,475. So
I can't believe you guys have a bigger tax than us on the left coast.
Well, it's only in the city of Toronto. It's not everywhere. But it hurts.
Well, that's what they want to do, right? They bring in taxes and then they say, like, I hate the way the property transfer tax is brought in because they just brought it in another one here too. So when I think it was like the 1980s, before you were born, the government here said, okay, we're going to bring in this transfer tax, but don't worry. It's only going to be for those rich people. And those rich people who have houses over $200,000.
Right.
So it's going to be 1% on the first 200,000 and 2% on the balance. So we're not going to screw you guys. We're only going to screw the rich guys. And then, so obviously every house is $1.5 million now, or more, whatever.
Yeah.
So they have never adjusted that number. So it's basically 2% minus $2,000. And now, just a couple of years ago, they were like, oh, anything over $3,000, this much more. Anything over, $3 million, this much more. Yeah. There's a portion from 2 to 3 million that's more. Then there's a portion from 3 and above that's more. So like a $3 million property is like 5% transfer tax, right? GST basically. So but they pitch it to you. Don't worry. it's only the rich people and your house will never be worth that much because the market's going to crash. And then the market goes crazy again. And now all of the regular people are paying the highest tax because that's taxation. This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by the Storey team at LePage Signature in Toronto, Ontario. The Storey team focuses on satisfying all of their clients' wants and needs when either buying or selling real estate in the GTA. But don't take my word for it. They have way over 100 5-star reviews on Google from clients singing their praises after amazing home purchases and sales. From downtown Toronto condos to semis to detached homes, whatever your needs, Tom and his team promise to provide an educated, honest, and transparent approach to helping all of their clients achieve their financial and personal goals through real estate. So there is no need to search bus benches or newspaper ads anymore to find the right agent for you. Just visit www.storyteam.ca to book a call with the Storey team today. That's STOREYTEAM.ca. That's storyteam.ca. This communication is not intended to cause or induce breach of any existing agency agreement.
Ours was brought in, the municipal one, in 2008. And at that time, I'd have to look back, but the average sale price was probably under $500,000 in the city, right?
Yeah.
Now it's $1.2 million. And I actually ran the numbers because I was interested in this last year. I did the math on how many properties sold in the city of Toronto, not the GTA, like the Toronto proper. And I did based on the average sale price times just the municipal side of the tax. And the number I got was a shade under $1 billion in tax revenue based on how many transactions happen. And I actually remember at the time I put it out on Twitter. I'm like, does anyone know where this money is spent? Because I'm sure when they put this tax in the first year, it was like maybe 100 million or 200 million. Now they're making $1 billion.
But Tom, they built all that affordable housing with it. They built, all that free housing they're giving to the people that really need it the most. Isn't that where all the beautiful apartments are for all the people that need the services for drug addiction and everything else? Isn't that where it was spent?
I don't think so. What else? I think it's what I was told was, listen, this was spent years ago. I think our city, how it was explained to me is like the city of Toronto can't have a deficit. So money from other places has been already spent. Like you can't have a deficit at the end. And then I found out
but they can take next year's revenue and put it into this
year's exactly. And I found out from a firefighter friend of mine. He showed me the breakdown of like the city of Toronto budget, and I think the entire budget, like 14 billion or something, and just the fire department operations were like $1 billion. So land transfer tax in Toronto pays for the fire department. I'll make that trade-off all day long, right? So, it's interesting, but like that's a lot of money. And that's one of my other reasons I think, like, does the city of Toronto, does the Canadian government want to crash our housing market if they're benefiting so massively from every side of the transaction? You get taxed when you buy, you pay tax when you own, and if it's not your principal residence, you pay tax when you sell.
Well, but the conspiracy theories out there will say, hey, they drive it up, they get everybody in debt, and they crash the market, and this is all on purpose. And I have the same answer to every single person that says that type of stuff to me. And I'm like, listen, if you can pick between massive conspiracy or widespread incompetence, it's probably number two. Right? It's probably the people that are voted in that have no resources or no expertise within the situation to be the finance minister or anybody else that are making these financial decisions. So, for instance, right now we're going through the legislation for the cooling off period in BC. Right?
What's that at now? Is it back down to 5 days now? What's going on with that?
Oh, well, so the BC FSA has now made their recommendations, and I love this. Whoever is in charge of the BCFSA, I'm not sucking up, but I think you are a Steve troll at heart, because they went, oh, the government has all these regulations. Cool. Like, this is all buyer protection, and it's all ill-informed, whatever, but it's their mandate to implement them.
Yep.
And then the BC REA, us agents went, well, listen, that's going to hurt the market. We can't suggest staying the same is a good thing. So we're going to make all these different suggestions, which they were legitimate good suggestions.
Sure.
What does the BCFSA do? Oh, how about all of the things get implemented? We're going to take everybody's suggestions and dump them into this big bucket and go, here you go, government. This is what I think you should do.
Hey, so if I'm listening, explain that BCREA is BC Real Estate Association.
So that's the Realtors.
Realtors.
BCFSA. Sorry, I'm inside baseball here.
Yeah.
The BCFSA is the regulating body. So we used to be self-regulated.
Yep.
In 2016, when the market doubled, it was our fault. So they regulated us with a superintendent. And now we are regulated within the same people as mortgage brokers, financial advisors, everybody else.
Hey, Steve, if it was our fault when the market went up, how come we can't stop it from going down?
I don't know. Maybe we're in the conspiracy theory to keep it going.
Right? Again, that's giving us way too much credit.
Hey, man, here's the thing. People want someone to blame. Rather than go, okay, either one, I have to take responsibility for myself or admit that everybody's a more like we watch too many movies, right? There's probably more real life that is Dumb and Dumber versus Ocean's 11.
You see Top Gun yet?
No, I have not seen Top Gun. Did you go back to your boyhood love? Did you go? You told me you went and saw that movie by yourself.
Yeah, I had never done that before. And it was just midweek. I had a few hours. I'm like, I got a baby now, so I want to be home during the evenings for bedtime. I just went and saw it, turned my phone off. It was like bliss. It was amazing. And that movie's awesome. Awesome. Like in IMAX, I was like sitting there like, yes. Like,
I think I've only done that once, and the movie was something like 28 Days Later. So it's the last time I ever did that. I scared myself.
Yeah, that might be the best sequel ever. Maybe it's recency bias, but like that was a good movie.
They were both good movies.
Go see it. Go see it.
They were both good movies. I'm not a movie guy though anymore, man. I'm a TV show guy. You need long plots.
The Boys just came out season 3. That's a great show.
I got to get into that one. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, aren't we supposed to talk about real estate? Aren't we supposed to have people commenting down below? Hey, Tom, actually, I did have an idea. If anybody is going this far in, if you're on the audio, pop over to the YouTubes and maybe I want to know what people would like to hear about or if they have questions so we can address them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good idea.
We talk inside, like I say, my favorite term, I think I've said too much, inside baseball a lot. Right.
Yep.
Because we have an audience that's clients, but we also have an audience that's other agents. So I want to know, what is it that you think we should address? And I'm not talking all the silly conspiracy theory stuff. If you have a question about the market or something that is pressing, leave it down below in the comments and we'll make sure we try and get to it next week.
Yeah, I think most people just want to feel that when that moment comes in their life that they make this big transaction, they're being taken care of. And I think that's the biggest thing. And if I listen, both of our businesses, a huge percentage of it is people that are referred to us or have already worked with us in the past and are coming back, right? And I think that's because we're realistic with the market. We don't promise the moon because, listen, we can only, as good as maybe we think we are at our jobs, we can only control so much. But the people that are listening or watching to this are probably in the same mindset of us, where they really enjoy real estate talk. But something that we've chatted a lot about is most people don't care.
Yeah.
People are living their lives and they don't care. When it comes time to sell, they'll care, but until then they don't. So I heard someone in the States, I forget who it was, they talked about their agents. They said the agents there should stop talking about the fact that the market is cooling and the fact that we could have a correction here in the market. Because if you talk about it so much, you're going to manifest it because then people are going to believe it. Is that what's going on here?
Oh, yeah. You got the government sitting there going, no. This is bad. This is bad. Interest rates. And so everybody does that. They take dude, we're going to have a good summer. Yeah. We're going to relax. We're going to not be worked. Well, it's not true. We're going to have 10,000 listings, but it is a manifestation for sure. Just like the run up in the market with how crazy it is was likely due to the amount of people going, oh crap, if I don't get in now, I'm never going to get in. So the more we think about something, we manifest it as we are a a hive society now, right? There is all the information is everywhere across the whole world, unless you're in a couple of countries that turn off the internet. But there, like, we all do go in the same direction, and that's something that I've always like. Why do we do what everybody else tells us to do, rather than make the decision that's right for you right now?
Do you know why? Because, you know, go back to like your young days of like, you don't want to be picked last in dodgeball. You know, if the whole class goes one direction and you go the other direction, they're like, well, what's wrong with you? And it takes a lot of inner confidence to do the thing that people aren't doing. Even if you like, you ever seen like a group of girls or a group of guys walking down the street, when you're with your pack, your entourage, you're like feeling good. You're like this, and then you're like, okay, I'll see you guys later. You start walking by yourself. You walk differently because you're not as confident in the group. It's the same thing as what goes on with the market, where it's like, if people are saying, I got an email, I can read it to you. It literally said, hey, Tom, thanks for sending over the list, blah, blah, blah. We're going to wait till the next announcement in July before jumping on anything. Probably not bad advice or a bad thought process, but they've decided, because of the news and frankly, because of the conversation I had with them, where I think things are going to go, now they're going to hold tight.
Everybody's going to do what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what everybody was doing before. Now, do I think that that's wise to, or, you know, just, hey, because everybody's doing this, you should do the other thing? Probably not.
No.
But you do have to weigh your situation and see what's up. Like, for instance, last year when I bought my most recent investment property, the whole plan was like, nobody's doing this yet. I think they're going to be doing it in the future. But that's when I bought, right? And maybe I have a little bit of experience and can kind of tell when I think the market's going to go one way or the other. But I don't know. I just think the news gets to the end user or the investor so late.
You're right.
That they don't necessarily make good choices as a result of listening to those sources. So they should listen to our podcast now on podcast apps everywhere and YouTube to stay up to date on the Vancouver and Toronto market.
When were you going to give me my plug for telling you to buy that condo? I thought I was getting a referral fee on that.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to give you a plug. I remember being in the car. I remember looking, I was driving up the hill to where the condo actually is on the side. And I'm like, I think I'm going to buy something. And you were like, do it. I think you called me chicken shit. Right. And you were like, do it. And the other thing that helped me was I was talking to my neighbor, who we always talk about real estate every single day. I see him taking out the garbage cans together, talking about real estate. And he was basically like, you know, put your money where your mouth is. If you think this is such a good deal, put your money where your mouth is. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put on my big boy pants and I'm going to do it this time. Right. Because I did believe in that's where it was going to go. Right. So I definitely, I don't know. I guess I do have to say thank you, Tom Storey, for your amazing advice on my massive.
I remember we were talking about it, and I was like, well, in my market, condos were suffering. You know, freehold went crazy. The gap is huge. One of two things happens: condos go up or freehold comes down. And to start when that was happening, then we saw this massive run up in condos, and it's like we kind of saw this coming, but nothing's guaranteed, right? And we had talked about this on last episode. Like, the price you probably hoped it would be worth in 5 years, it's already worth now.
Yeah, it is.
And that's pretty darn cool. And if you kept your money in your bank account from then until now, you are in a much better financial position now that you did that then. And when we look back at today, in 5 years from now, we look at the prices now, are we going to say no one was doing anything, we should have grabbed something? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Last night, we helped clients buy a house. It had been sitting on the market. So they got an offer originally at like almost 1.2 1.25 million. Didn't take it, wanted to wait for a better offer. Sat, relisted at 1.2. We got the house. I'm not gonna say the exact price or anything, but like under 1.15.
Yeah.
And like there's opportunity right now, and I think those people in this example needed to sell.
Do you know what I'm finding interesting right now, because it's been a little bit since we've had to talk about price reductions and
Sure.
getting our clients to, it's the other side of the equation, right? Like every equation's equal on both sides. We're just on the other side now. So it is amazing to me, being in the industry, of like, you're showing those downward trends to those sellers and you're like, okay, I know this is where your neighbor sold.
Yeah.
Apply the numbers, plus apply another 3 weeks after that, because we're not going to be on the market for 3 weeks. This is where your selling price is. And it's just like, nope. And I'm like, guys, this is only like February price, or like, let's call it January pricing right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, if we wait and there's another 0.75, we're going to be looking at October pricing from last year. Just the resistance is like, nope, not doing it. And it's like the age old, every agent that's listening to this right now is going to be like, yep.
Yeah.
It's they end up selling for less down the road because of the pride originally, right? But it's easier for buyers, Tom, is my point. This is a long way to say it's easier for buyers. It's easier for buyers because when they lose a property,
Yeah.
they are like, oh crap, next time I got to pay more. So now they know where value is or whatever. When you lose a buyer as a listing, you just wait for another one.
We had an offer on one of our condo listings last week. We actually sold this condo yesterday, so we did get a better price, but they came in and we countered back to them at what I thought was reasonable, and they just said, nope.
Yeah.
Didn't respond. Nope. We're moving on. We got other options. And if you're a seller today, over at least the next 3 months, I don't think you're going to be in a better position to get more money in the next 3 months. After that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But right now, if you can get something decent today, like if you don't need to sell and you can sell next year or the year after, yeah, maybe you'll get more money then. But if you have to sell in this calendar year, you're either going to get the same or lower from what you can get today, is my opinion. I could be wrong.
I got a feeling that, yes, 9 months minimum, right?
Yeah.
Let's say calendar year. Okay, so let's go December minimum. Prices will decline. The question is, what will happen after that? Will it even out or whatever? Then, for instance, if you're on the market for $1 million,
Mhm.
and the last sale was $1,050,000, and now the comps are all $950,000 or $899,000. If you're holding out for $1 million, how long are you holding out for that $1 million for? Personally, I think it's 3 years, 4 years, maybe.
Depends
So
on the
if
micro market, but yeah, generally
Yeah,
speaking, sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we got a disclaimer, everything saying by evaluation and pricing strategy and condition of home and all that stuff.
Right.
But I just don't see, like, if I'm talking about the overall, like if I'm looking at the whole market of where I think it's going to go, if I was looking at like TREB's average price, whatever
Sure.
that curve is, right?
Yep.
I don't think you're going to see the January, February prices. Let's say February, March prices
Yep.
in Surrey. I don't think you're going to see them again for a couple of years.
It took us 3.5 years to get back to 2017 prices for most asset classes. Now, condos were never affected during that timing, but everything else was. For freehold, it took, I think, 3.5 years to get back. Then they blew by it, but to get back, it took 3.5 years.
Yeah. And everyone, I'm just amazed. Like, again, maybe I think about money differently than a lot of people do, but being a tightwad that I am, and you know that because you're like, buy this thing, do this, just this freaking microphone I'm talking into. You've been telling me to buy it for like 6 months. I'm like, no, anyway. I firmly believe that your monthly payment is the thing that's going to affect you every day while you fight with your spouse for the whole time you're in the property. So everyone else is only the amount of people that are only focused on purchase price versus what it's going to cost them is stupid to me. I just think it is ill-advised that people are sitting there going, you know what? I don't mind taking on another $550 a month if I get $30,000 off the price. Like, what? Huh?
I think maybe a good thing to show sellers moving forward was in February, where the rates were at. Maybe if you're taking it, like, use variable in this example for overnight rate. If you bought $1 million house, here's what your payments would have been. Okay, let's just say for easy math, $3,000. Okay, and today to buy a nine, I know, but I'm just whatever, right? Today to buy let's say $4,000. We'll go higher than it is. Today to buy a $950,000 house, it's $4,200.
Yes. Yes. And what matters when you're trying to pay for your gas bill that goes up and your groceries that go up and all those other things?
So,
what
but
matters?
buyers understand, or are starting to understand that, but it's making sure that sellers understand that if they want February pricing, well, it just doesn't exist.
No, not anymore.
A guy called me yesterday from YouTube and he was like, hey, we talked in February and we talked about, like, could I wait a bit to list my property? And you said, well, a few months should be fine. I was like, well, I was wrong, man. Like, yeah. I'm sorry. I wish I knew. I wish I knew it was going to play out like this. Nobody knows.
But what's the next step? Toss good money after bad and wait? Like, if your options are, I could stay here for 5 years, sure. But if your options are, hey, my life has changed in some significant way, waiting just means less, right? And when does this become hard for people? When they're looking at their house as retirement, when they're looking at, splitting up, right? When it's less hard if it's estates and stuff, because that's usually going to, we're dealing with a ton of estates, by the way. The amount of listings flooding on right now that are old folks going to homes and people that have passed away because nobody's gone to homes for the last 2 years.
Right.
So we're seeing people now going to homes thinking it's safe to do that, just like power of attorney sale everywhere. Those people have been in their homes for 20, 30 years. So those ones are probably going to be the ones where you can get a bit more of a quote unquote deal.
Oh, and also they, and even the families are looking and going, well, we've owned this house for 30 years. Well, if we can get this price, we'll take it. They're not stuck on, like, we bought it last year, we need this,
Every power of attorney sale goes like this. There's usually 3 to 4 kids in that age group. Now there would be less, but let's say there's whatever percentage of kids there are.
Yep.
75% are on board. One is the black sheep in the family and they need the cash.
The middle child.
It's astounding. And then this is probably super boring real estate talk, but let me tell you, if you're planning an estate, don't put all of your kids on the estate. Pick your favorite, pick the one you like the most, or pick the smartest one, but don't put them all, because I know you're trying to be fair, but you're just going to cause your kids to hate each other when you're dead.
That's good advice to anyone listening, to tell your parents you love them today, so you can get the estate.
But then you got to be executor. I think I'm executor of like 7 wills.
Executors, the work, like, there's so much involved. I meet with executors a lot when we do estate sales, and the stress level, I can just see it on their face. They're like, I'm like, how you doing today? They're like, meetings, clearing things out, answering a million things. Like, tough.
Yeah. The key there, I think, and this is hard for a lot of people to understand, but if you want to be nice to your kids in the future, don't stay in your 4,000 square foot house till you're 90. Just don't do it. It's the amount of siblings that fight over that.
But Steve,
insane.
But Steve, they worked their whole life to own that house, and they have the right to live there.
They do. So I have every single time I meet with an older couple that's thinking about downsizing. Often, unfortunately, it's very, very late, but I will always have the same conversation. There are 2 sets of very happy downsizers. Everybody else fights it and hates it. There are 2 sets. The first set is the empty nester that is downsizing right around or before retirement to be happy so they can not have the maintenance and not have the things that they, and travel and do all the things that they want to do. The second set is the couple that never had kids in the first place.
Right.
They're they're having cocktails at 3:00, right? They're 75 years old and they're just like, hey, it's noon, honey. You want a rum and Coke? You bet I do. It's like cookie cutter every single time. All the people that hang on till they're like 75 and they are like, you're not taking me out of here. Those people are miserable.
Yeah. That's going to be you one day. So
I will not, man. I'm downsizing as soon as possible. My kids are 18. I'm moving.
You're going to
I had a question for you, Tom. And this is a massive thing that's happening and it's driving us insane out here. And I'm wondering if it's a culture thing, like culture being West Coast thing.
Sure.
Or whatnot. But this is an agent specific question.
Okay.
How often do you have agents book showings for your listings and then they don't show up, just the buyer does?
I mean, how many times have we caught it or confirmed it's happened? I'd say a handful, like not a lot, but more than that, we have people that book showings just don't show up, just don't cancel it, and that's super annoying. That's super fun. And there's our real estate board has fines involved with both of these things, but you have to figure out it happened, make the complaint, and go through the whole process. So yeah, it's crazy, especially realtors that are outside your market.
Yeah.
And
it's mostly in our market, it's mostly Vancouver agents coming into the burbs, right? And they're like, I'm not going to go there. Now I'm trying to figure out, is it like you go find your own property thing and I'm just not going to do it, the work, because I'm giving you such a big kickback that it's not worth,
perhaps,
me actually putting in hours? Or is it like is this the new norm where it's just like, no. Like, do most agents, maybe this is where you and I, being involved in coaching and all the different things we do to make our business better, are there literally agents out there that are like, oh yeah, I set up a showing, the agent's going to meet you there? Because I'm seeing that multiple times a week now, and I'm only getting 4 or 5 showings a week on all of my listings.
But so they expect you to show up to your own listing and show their buyer?
They don't even tell us they're not coming.
How do they not lose their license for that?
Great question.
Great
question. It is an issue. So I have seen even where agents will supply their buyers with lockbox codes, and that is an immediate $10,000 fine.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just wondering if you because this is something we're seeing very regularly, and I'm just wondering if you're seeing it there. If there are agents still listening and watching this on YouTube, and if you're seeing it, write it in the comments, because I don't know how to fix the problem of, hey, you've hired someone to be your agent. Go use that person, because they're going to make a buttload of money off of you.
Well, I think when we say hired, we assume that they've signed a contract, that they're working with each other. Maybe they haven't signed that contract.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? I don't know what it is. And the reality is 25% of agents do 75% of the business. And the rest of what's left over is done by a big portion of real estate agents. And some of them are part-time. And I'm not going to come on here and throw shade at part-time. It is what it is. But if you are going to buy a massive asset or sell a massive asset, your cousin's not always going to cut it. Okay. And especially in a market where things are shifting, my God, I'll tell you a quick, there's a brokerage in my market that publicly screams to the
do I want to be on this podcast anymore? These are the opinions of Tom and Tom Storey.
I'm not saying any names or anything.
Signature. Okay.
Yeah. There is a company in my market that actively says that if you buy with us, we give you money back. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. That's their business model. There'll be a portion of the market that's interested in that value proposition. Every time I see one of their names as cooperating, meaning they brought the buyer for a property, I'm like, oh my God, they paid what? So,
oh, really?
Yeah. Many times when I see a price, I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, oh, it was them. So it's like, sure, you got some money back, but you paid $100,000 too much. And so and I'm not coming out here. They don't even have a lot of market share. So it's not like I'm saying oh, what was me? I wish no, I'm thinking about the client. I'm like, they think they won. That client thinks they won because they got money back, but they have no clue they overpaid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem, where it's like, for us to come in here and talk about it would be boring, just to be like, this is why realtors are great. Like, you're never going to convince people that have made up their mind on it. But you get what you pay for, I guess, right? You get what you pay for.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess like I said, just because we're used to the people who we're used to,
Yeah.
right? It would never occur to me, right? And I'm just seeing it nonstop. So like, how do you get the word out there? How does it get fixed? I just don't know. Like, I've got one guy right now that wants to see a property, and it's like, okay, this is a conduct of sale, right? BC agents can't double end properties anyway.
Yep.
Like, I want to see this property, and no, I'm not going to bring my agent. And it's like, okay, so I can't. Now I have to represent my client. I have to show the property. I also can't say the thing, anything to anybody while I'm at the showing. I can't even qualify this buyer to make sure that they should be in the property for the safety of the owner, right? Like, I can't do any of this stuff now. So it's like, go get your own agent. It's a really weird spot that we've been in, because in BC, when we've been moved to specifically just, you have your designated agent.
Sure.
The market wasn't quite ready for that. Right. The market, they said, okay, well, you can't represent both buyer and seller. And the market didn't really care or notice. Right. So I don't know. It's a weird spot, but I do hear that maybe Quebec is like adopting like all of BC's like rules. So the limited dual agency thing, it could be rumors. If you're from Quebec and listening, let me know. But the limited dual agency thing could be sending or out on its own in crazy markets like yours.
Our market's so robust that although we could represent, I have a policy we don't. Like, on my listings, I only represent the seller. But even though we can, like, rarely has it happened. Ever. Rarely.
And we used to do it 20% of the time.
Okay. I mean, that's not nothing. That's still...
It's not nothing. It's not nothing, because we have a culture here in our marketplace where a lot of the buyers think they'll get a better deal if they go direct. And let me tell you, it's a good thing they outlawed limited dual agency, because it's a similar situation to like what you were talking about earlier. They didn't get a better. I mean, they got the house, which might have been their ultimate goal. They don't really care, but now they have nobody advising them on price. They're put themselves in a stupid spot.
Yeah. Well, we don't have people sending their buyers, but we have a lot of like, hey, are you available to show my buyer? I'm away this week. I'm like, just do your job.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that's what we're in for the next little bit. It's going to be an interesting and bumpy summer compared to where everybody was at. I'm going to have more listings than I've had before. It's just, I wish people would be like, okay, I'm going to get ahead of this curve rather than behind it, right? Because they're going to wait for the news stories to hit. And you and I and stuff are going to be the big bad realtors that ended up selling for less in the future because of market conditions, right? So I am, like you say, I'm also excited about the opportunities that are here, because like being on this medium, I'm excited to see what it will open up. But like the YouTube channel stuff, I can't believe how many people are reaching out, because I'm giving out information in advance, and I don't think the rest of the industry is. And it's so cool to see like people like, holy crap, like you actually told me what the hell's going on. I want to work with you. And I'm just so excited about the opportunity to work with so many more people.
It's been amazing. I've had the same experience on people reaching out from YouTube, but then we also have the other side, which is like, hey, I watched all your videos. I bought last year. I used my family friend, and I'm like, oh my God, like they paid a lot for that house. And then they want you to like validate it. And sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, real estate agents are going to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations the next minimum 3 to 6 months with clients that you haven't had to do in the last 2 years, because price goes up. We're good. Now,
We haven't had, I mean, we had a small dip in 2019, middle of 2019 was a bad year, but um, for my business, for the purchases look great. But like, for instance, right now, I think we're 10 properties on the market and more coming. It hasn't been that way since 2014 for us, man.
yeah,
So anybody licensed in the last 8 years hasn't seen the pain, and they don't realize, that you could have a 60, 90, 120-day listing that doesn't sell, right?
yeah.
It's gonna be a fun summer.
All right, Steve, let's wrap this up. Final thoughts on the market?
I want to thank everybody, if you're still listening at this point in time, not on the market, but I want to thank them for listening to the audio version. Man, I was blown away by how many people listened on the audio version of this. I really hope that we can get a guest on, because people are going to get sick of
I
my
have guests lined
ugly
up.
face.
Okay, enough of this. I have guests coming.
Just so everybody knows how this show works. Steve does all the back end. Tom looks pretty and lines up the guests. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great summer for us, because we get to relax and take it easy. But let me tell you, get educated. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about selling a property in the next 6 months, my thought is get educated and do it now, because you are not going to like your realtor in September. Anybody waiting for September? Maybe that's my final thought.
Sure.
Anybody waiting for September for prices to come back? Don't. We're shaking. Yeah, this doesn't do well for audio.
They might.
We're
Yeah,
both
we're
shaking
shaking
our
our
heads
heads.
no.
Yeah, they might stop falling as fast in September, but they ain't coming back.
Yeah. Not until something's done with interest rates and all.
Do you remember how we end the episodes?
We have we're trying to find a sign off. I don't have my sign off yet.
Oh, I have mine.
You have one?
Bye.
Okay. See you later, man.